and got a bunch of us people together to do a rally. He's been active in the Fort Worth School board, basically getting CRT out of the Fort Worth School.
Woo! Yeah.
He is like a non-stop. Yeah. And also, he's the former president. I know I said he was the president. He was at the time when I first announced it, but he's since graduated and on to a brilliant career. So he is the president of the Turning Point USA at UTA. So he's going to fill us in what's been going on at the woke university. So
Let's
here
go.
in our hometown. So I'd like to introduce Carlos Turcios.
Woo! Carlos!
Right.
You can't even see.
Well, howdy. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
Very good. Well, my name is Carlos Turcios. I'm the precinct sheriff for Precinct 07. I'm also a former UTA, Turning Point USA president at the University of Texas at Arlington. And I'm also a former columnist for the Star Telegram, a conservative columnist. And of course, Star Telegram they got mad and eventually they never renewed me because I was too right-wing for them. I like to know going on at UTA and how the Turning Point chapter has been going there, so I'll just do that. So I started politics at a very young age, at the age of 15, and of course the major events that I helped organize was actually, it started with the 2020 election, and so seeing how the defund the police and Black Lives Matter is affecting the whole country, at that moment I decided to of course make a huge Back to Blue event in downtown Fort Worth, and we had a lot of people from Arlington and other cities in the Metroplex to join, and we had like 500 people show up. And it was a huge turnout. Of course, Fort Worth Weekly and some other media outlets, they report on it, but ever since then, it's been just a little train I've created basically for people to get on board. Since the 2020 election, I eventually got involved heavily on the school board side of politics. So, of course, I organized protests with the help of other parents and activists against the Fort Worth Independent School District's activities on race theory and, of course, other woke ideologies in the schools. And we had a huge turnout back in June 2021 where we had like 250 parents show up at the school board meeting. And they got very upset and they didn't really like the fact that for the first time ever, we had a lot of parents getting involved and starting to get very vocal about what's going on. And so, of course, Fox 4 reported on it, Breitbart eventually reported on it as well, and we've just been hammering the independent school district ever since. And of course, Fox News reported on it, and then eventually I got interviewed by Fox News as well about what was happening since I was a former DEI committee member for Fort Worth ISD for 4 years. And I gathered 10 gigabytes worth of videos and files, and I just sent it to Fox News and other media outlets to create chaos against the independent school district. And of course, a lot of the bureaucrats were very scared because of that. And CBS reported on what was happening. We were just hammering them until eventually you had the former board president, Jacinto Ramos, was the fourth most radical trustee in the country to resign. So he resigned in October 2022. And then, of course, that same year, Fort Worth ISD Kent Scrivener, Superintendent Scrivener also resigned as well. And of course, on this side of the presentation, that's one of my columns I wrote. Basically, it was Fort Worth Schools' obsession with equities and helping kids learn to read or do math. And of course, the journalists, they were unhappy and they expressed their unhappiness with me once I left because they were a huge Twitter feed about me, but I don't read Star Telegram anymore. So, yeah. But ever since I've been doing that and organizing that, I also got involved on Turning Point USA here at UTA. And of course, UTA is a very large campus here in the state of Texas. And of course, we have a very liberal university, unfortunately, even though it's in Arlington and Tarrant County. And last year, we had several of our Turning Point officers that were also student body officers, one of them being the student body president. They got impeached because they apparently, their conservative views were leaked. There's a group chat that was leaked, and it was simple things such as Christianity and abortion, and also George Floyd's statue. They're just criticizing that, but the left-wing mob at the university basically turned it around and basically said they're racist and they're white supremacists and all that. So they made a huge march against them, and they both got impeached. And that's UTA. Turning Point has been involved in basically promoting conservative values, so we actually participated in the anti-abortion protest that we organized because they were creating these pro-abortion events at the university, and we're like, you know what, we should probably get involved as well and show that there's also a pro-life population here at the university, so that's the short form. And of course, the university, they've been promoting a lot of the transgender ideology, and they got very upset when we invited Jeff Younger to talk about his situation and his child custody case. And so he eventually put up a lot of those Trans Lives Matter signs across the university, using your taxpayers' money. So UTA right there, folks. Of course, right here is one of the beautiful protesters that we met whenever we organized our events back in November. And of course, as you can see there, bigots or trans youth matter. And we had like 100 counter protesters. And of course, there's us. That's our chapter right there, protesting the abortion crowd there at UTA. But then on the other side is the fun thing. So our chapter was actually doxxed by a left-wing journalist, and they wrote a huge little hit piece. Of course, I don't really care what they wrote. It's garbage, so I don't even mind. But they were going after the chapter, and they didn't just target me, they target other club members as well. And one of the things I told the club members, since I was the president back then, I basically told them, hey, you're doing something right. They're afraid of you. And one thing that I advise is, in politics, you're going to be attacked, you're going to be criticized, you're going to have articles written about you, and that's okay, because as conservatives, that just shows that you're probably doing something right, and they're afraid. So, Sam Monticelli, he's a little left-wing nutjob person. The university also did something funny as well. So we organized a Jeff Younger event. We also organized an event with Sheriff Bill Wayburn as well, and Brandon Tatum, and they charged us $28,000 for security fees. Now, reminders, we didn't sign any contract, any paperwork with them whatsoever. And UTA PD, 4 months after the Jeff Younger event, decided to slap this little fine. So we got the ADF involved, and Turning Point gave us good attorneys, and they eventually crushed. So UTA had to drop all the charges altogether. So that was defeated. So UTA PD, they lost. So that was a good victory right there. And of course, that's our Brandon Tatum event right there. We had a pretty good turnout, and was talking about how to get involved in the conservative movement, and most importantly, about Black America and minorities in America and how they can join the conservative cause. And of course, right there is Jeff Younger and several officers right there. They're a part of the Turning Point chapter, and of course, my girlfriend is in the middle in the picture. She's right there as well. So she is the. She would always table every week because she was the campus chair, and so every single week she would put at the table and pass out flyers to people and try and recruit more members for our club. So she is a doer and a worker, and she did a lot for the club. But overall, what is the learning experience for all of this? 4 or 5, the UTA, all of this. Is one thing I do want to say is, of course, education is the most important system and the most important issue, in my opinion, in America right now. Some people, of course, are they have other issues involved. But I will say this, we were dogs, we saw the dark side of youth politics in America. We saw how many young people are turning to the socialist cause and the left-wing cause, believing that there are more than two genders, believing that the church is fascist, believing that Christianity is evil. And I will say that education needs to be a top priority, because 2022, for example, what do the stats show? The stats show that 68% of Gen Z voters, 68% voted Democrat. They had a very high turnout across the country. The left is weaponizing the youth. That's what they're doing. They are weaponizing the youth against their parents, against the family, against basically any grown adult, the older generation. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a dependent group of some kind, one that is going to be hooked to this left-wing machine permanently. How do they do that? They do that in two fronts. They do that with the transgender industrial complex, and I have to call it like that because it is an industrial complex, and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Transgenderism and LGBTQ, 20% of my generation is a part of that group. Baby boomers, it was 2%. Generation X, it was just 5%. Millennials, it was 10%. My generation is 20%. That is artificially created. So that means, mathematically speaking, in 2 generations from now, everyone should be gay in this country. They are weaponizing social contagion to try and get kids to go against their parents and break up the nuclear family. Why is that? Because they want to control those kids and eventually make them into permanent voters for the left-wing cause and ultimately destroy America. Because all of the work that my parents, everyone in this room has done will be eroded in 20 to 30 years if we do not have a hostile takeover of America's education system. And I'm going to be very, very honest. That is what's going to happen. 20, 30 years from now, this country will have CEOs, people in Congress, doctors, politicians, all types from my generation thinking that there are more than 2 genders, that a boy can be a girl, that America has systemic racism and it must be brought down and changed fundamentally. And the American flag is racist. American history is racist. We must tear down George Washington's statue. It will be our youth that has been weaponized going up against my parents and everyone here and changing everything. So all of the legislation that the state of Texas and other states have passed will be eroded. It will be gone in 30 years. Because our youth will have destroyed that within 30 years, 20 to 30 years. And that's why I heavily tell parents and I tell people that education is extremely important. I think, in my opinion, it needs to be the #1 issue. The #1 issue. Because the left has hijacked education. And conservatives need to get involved. They need to get involved. They need to push back and fight. And they can't be afraid of the left. Because I will say, when we did counter-protest at UTA, when we did counter-protest at Fort Worth ISD, the left got scared. They got scared because for the first time ever, they had people finally seeing, they had people that they have never seen. They had conservatives that they have never seen for many years, especially in Fort Worth ISD. Conservatives cannot be afraid. You're going to be labeled as a transphobic bigot, a racist, a white supremacist, and all that. And I will say this, label me however you want, because I'm going to continue pushing back, fighting, and making sure that this country has a better future, not just for me or my kids, but for my grandchildren and the future of this country. And that is worth fighting for every single day, every single minute for the future, because I want a better future for everyone. And I think everyone here as well. And so, education. Turning Point did a fantastic job. It helped me get stronger in politics, I will say so. I will give them credit for that. And it wakes up a lot of young people. And the young people are the future of this country. the young people need to be safe because the radical left, they are weaponizing them. And the greatest weapon that has been created in history, not the nuclear bomb, not an AR-15, but the youth. The youth is now going to become the greatest political weapon against America. And that is concerning. That is something that we need to change. And we can change it. We have time. And I think we have an obligation to do something, of course. So, but yeah, that's my spiel for Turning Point Football 5C. We need to fight. We need to push back. We cannot give up.